was a famous trumpet man from out Chicago way. He had a boogie style that no one else could play. He was a top man at his craft. But then his number came up and he was gone with the draft. He's in the army now, a-blowin' reveille. He's the boogie-woogie bugle boy of Company B. They made him blow a bugle for his Uncle Sam. It really brought him down because he couldn't jam. The captain seemed to understand, because the next day the cap went out and drafted a band. And now the company jumps when he plays reveille. He's the boogie-woogie bugle boy of Company B. A toot, a toot, a toot-dilly-a toot, he blows it 8 to the bar. In boogie rhythm, he can't blow a note unless the bass and guitar is playing with him. He makes the company jump when he plays reveille. He's the boogie-woogie bugle boy of Company B. He was the boogie-woogie bugle boy of Company B. And when he plays boogie-woogie bugle, he was busy as a bee. And when he plays, he makes the company jump 8 to the bar. He's a boogie-woogie bugle boy of Company B. Toot-toot-toot-toot-da-da, toot-da-da, toot-toot, he blows it 8 to the bar. He can't blow a note if the bass and guitar isn't with him. The company jumps when he... Hey! Happy birthday, dear Midred. Happy birthday to you. Jumps when he plays reveille. He's a boogie-woogie bugle boy of Company B. He puts the boys to sleep with boogie every night and wakes them up the same way in the early bright. They clap their hands and stamp their feet because they know how.
Mom, you want to say anything? You tell these people you love them?
I do. Is this your actual day? Is this the actual birthday?
All right, let me remind you now, we're about to move over to this area where we had the buffet at, and we're going to our guests will be in place. Please rise and join us over in the area of the birthday cake.
No, I want it Midred. I want her over here with Mom, if you don't mind. So that we can.
So it's happy anniversary.
Isn't it gorgeous, Mom? we're celebrating her 90th birthday, and I thank God for a godly mother and raising us right. And I just thank her for all she's done for me and my sister our whole lives, and my dad too. He also was a veteran. But I just thank all our veterans. We love our veterans, and we're so happy, and thank you for serving and taking care of us and keeping us safe. And I would like for all of our veterans to stand up. Let us recognize our veterans. Any veterans?
All right, thank you.
You're wearing all your very official faces.
I see where you girls get your good looks. Okay, why don't each of you give your mom a kiss on the cheek?
I got her ear instead. Y'all try again? Yeah. That's so cute. Look it. Go, Argo. Woo! Sorry, girl. You're good. There you go.
I didn't think I could talk to them in there, and then they couldn't hear me shut.
Happy birthday. So when do we get to watch the interview on the DVD? When we
I
get to
don't
watch
know
it?
when it'll be ready.
We're ready.
Anyway, she said if I'd be able to watch it on my real birthday.
Oh, how about that?
And, Janice really surprised me.
Oh, the paparazzi. She went way out.
Well, who was interviewing you in there? Was it Barbara Walters or somebody like that?
I think it was her daughter. I'm sorry we've been missing church.
Oh, this is fine. We're sorry we were late.
This is so important. Yes, we wish we would have been here earlier. But we're so excited to be here and to be able to share a little bit of it with you. Thank you.
And you missed all the food, did you?
Oh, no, we scouted. We
That sounds like a good chocolate cake.
Sure did.
You did.
I had a cupcake, it was good.
I've been eating the insect
Matt talked his head off. Got started.
Well, it looked like it was beautiful.
Because
It looked like it was beautiful.
it was.
Yes. Your daughter did a wonderful job of surprising you.
They they've done this several times, but not quite like this. But they gave me a retirement party at, now I can't think of the name of the hotel out there at Perimeter, right across from the shopping center. I thought we was going out to go with Teresa and her boss and a couple other people just to check out some other restaurants. And I got there and they had this band and a whole lot of people there. And all kind of food and everything. And they surprised me for a birthday. 28 of us went there for dinner. And then they had a surprise. One Sunday a couple of us ladies all went out to eat. And usually at lunchtime and at dinner time. And everybody left. And I said, well, is nobody going out to eat today? And they were all gone. And so I said, well, I'll go home and be with Nancy and Teresa. They're always complaining I'm not there. And they weren't there. And they had a party for me that night after church. So, but, and each time I didn't have a clue that they was going to do anything.
Did they tell you were going out to a restaurant tonight?
Yeah, I thought.
What treat
I
did you
thought
play
these two, and
We were gonna take her out.
Well, they did.
We did.
I thought we was going to Atlanta. That's what they told me.
Oh.
To a nice restaurant.
Well, the night's not over yet.
I'll hold you to that. But when she turned headed north, I said, I thought you was going to Atlanta.
We didn't think.
She said, well, I gotta stop it here.
You knew the directions better than they did, right?
Yeah, pull anything off with her.
No. Nope. Nope.
Very nice restaurant.
Yes, very nice.
Yes, very
restaurant.
nice restaurant they took you to.
For a while, they had a tea room here.
Mm-hmm.
When the tea room that was right in the middle of Houston, when it closed, they came here, but it didn't. The one that did the cooking had moved to another place, so they closed it.
Okay, happy birthday, Mildred. You throw a great party. This is Evelyn, and I'm Paul Picard, and you know that, so just wanted to tell you that we're both veterans. My wife was in the Navy, 1952, 54. And I was in the Air Force, 1950 to 1991. I served 41 years. And I served I started in Korea, I served in the Aleutians, I served in Desert Storm in 1991. That's when I retired. They told me to go home and I had to retire. And in the meantime, my wife was at home. We got married in 1954. And you want to tell them about your Navy career?
I was sent to Great Lakes, Illinois. Worked in IBM building. And we got married.
And the Navy had a regulation back then that you had to get out of the Navy when you got married. So she had to get out.
He knows more than about my life than I do.
But that's okay, because we took our mustering out pay to go on our honeymoon. If we didn't have that mustering out pay, we would have been in trouble. And she still throws it up in my face today that she thinks she could have been an admiral if she hadn't married me.
Oh.
But anyway, Mildred, from one veteran to another, we love you, and I certainly hope that you have a wonderful birthday, and I'm sure we'll see you again. Thank you.
She's a very sweet lady.
Yes, she is. Absolutely. Done?
I'm not. Nothing. Go ahead.
Yes, my name is Private First Class Arthur Elliott Simmons. I'm with the U.S. National Guard. I am stationed at HHC, 1st of the 121st, right there in Winder, Georgia. I'd like to say happy birthday to my adopted grandmother, Miss Midred, for being 90 years old today. And I hope that me showing up really did surprise you.
Hi, this is Bill Picard, and I just want to wish Mildred Rice a happy birthday. Mildred, you're the best mother-in-law anyone could ever have, and I appreciate everything you've done. I served in the U.S. Navy from '78 to 1984 as a jet mechanic. Started off at basic training in Orlando, went to Millington, Tennessee for schooling, and was attached to an attack squadron at Dobbins Air Force Base, VA 205.
I graduated from Nebraska in 1944, and within 2 months I was in the service. I went to New York, where I was in the boot camp, and after boot camp I went to I can't remember where, but anyway. I ended up in the hospital corps, which is what I wanted. And the reason I really went into the service was to be in the hospital corps. And after I had been trained there, I was sent to Bethesda. And after Bethesda, I was sent to school again. And then I was sent to from Bethesda down to Parris Island. After Parris Island, I was sent to New York to the School for the Blind in the Bronx. And there were 15 women altogether who were in the School for the Blind. And we were going to teach them Braille, and we had to teach them how to get around with the walker and with canes. And we helped them with their various schooling that they had to undergo. And we were there from May until we graduated in September. And when we graduated, we had we were ready to go to the Naval Hospital in Philadelphia, which was the place where the blind for the Navy and Marine Corps retreated. And they lived in a special place there at the hospital, and a special ward. And we took care of them from about 7 o'clock in the morning to, well, every other day it was 9 o'clock at night. And the next day it would be 11. You'd go in and you got off around 11. So there were long days, but they were really very filling days. The men were anxious to get home, and so they were willing to work with you to get their work done that was required by the Navy. And I finally got home in 46, and went back to Nebraska for a short time, and then back to Philadelphia. But it was strenuous work in that you were trying to help, but at the same time you were trying to kind of push along somebody who maybe wasn't quite as enthusiastic as somebody else. And we really worked with these men. And they were very, very willing most of the time to take any suggestions we might make to help them make their way back to civilization, as they'd say. And we had a piano on the ward so that they could listen to music, and I sometimes would play for them after classes were over. We'd gather around the piano and sing war songs and things like that, or songs from home or school or whatever. And they enjoyed that. And they liked to play games. The first time that I went on at night, I went in at 9 o'clock where we had a change of shift. And after a while, I heard this funny noise. And I thought, what is this going on here? And of course, the ward was all dark except my little desk light. So I turned on the full light in the ward. And here were several of the blind fellows down on their knees, throwing their eyes like they were marbles. They were throwing them on the floor. And I said, I have to put those eyes in you in the morning. You're not going to, if you do that, you're going to get everything all out of shape that they're trying to make for you. So you're going to have to cut that out. Well, they did when they realized that it might delay their going home a little more. So they weren't too bad to handle. But I thought that was kind of a funny thing to happen. It was kind of disconcerting to me, but the fellows were getting a kick out of it, and they did as I asked. They put them back in their pocket that they're supposed to carry them in, and so that the nurse could go around and gather them up. But by the time I left, most of the boys were out of the Navy. They were still in the Navy, and they were getting care from the Navy, but they were no longer in the hospital. They were sent down home or sent to places close to home, so that they didn't have to all congregate in Philadelphia. But Philadelphia was a good place to be, and the city was very helpful to all of the fellows that we had there. and we appreciated the opportunity to work. When I was a corpsman, before I went to teach, I was in Philadelphia working with the blind. And one day the nurse came in and she said, Flora, Helen Keller's coming this afternoon, and she wants somebody to play the piano when she beats the beat for different songs, so people, the blind fellows, can understand how they can hear these songs even though they are blind. So she said, I'm going to ask you to, she said, Helen Keller will beat out something on the piano, because it was a regular piano. And she said, then she wants you to play the right beat. So I said, okay, I do that. So we did that, and they had a group of people coming down to listen to this, and it was interesting. She was very easy to work with, and she was glad to have a chance to show the blind people that there were things they could do even though they were blind. And it was a very gratifying little afternoon.
My cousin and I went to talk to the recruiter, and I didn't say anything. And she said, when we were getting ready to leave, she said, well, I said, give me a set of the papers. She said, I didn't think you were interested. I said, yes. Well, neither one was old enough. Back then you had to be 20 with your parents' consent, or 21. And we...
Just hold on just a second.
Sorry. My cousin and I weren't old enough. And but we took the papers, and I thought I could talk my mother into signing for me, but she felt like she couldn't do it. So I signed my own name to the papers, and I was sitting in the drugstore thinking how she signed my name. And I sat there and signed my own name. Well, it scared me to death because they told us we'd be in deep trouble if we lied. And as soon as I left the office, after turning in the papers, I realized I had signed my own name while I had my mother's name at the top, Mary, and here I signed Midred. So my aunt went back with me the next day and pretended to be my mother, and she signed the paper. And she was a very attractive lady, and they just fell for her. And they couldn't do enough for me. It seemed like they took me to lunch and all the things that they didn't usually do. And they put me in charge of the group that was leaving with me. And we got down to the train to leave for Fort Oglethorpe. And and the guy taking up the tickets said, "This is fine. You have reservations, but you have no tickets." Well, I had to find somebody to. I tried to find the sergeant, and I couldn't find her. And it was 10 o'clock at night. So the major had to come down and somehow or another get it okayed for us to board the train. And she had cautioned me to be so careful with the papers, and I knew I hadn't bothered them, but I felt guilty. And I didn't know what in the world was happening. And I didn't find out till I came home on leave, and they said the clerk had given them to a civilian man by mistake. Of course, I worried a lot for nothing, but we got basic, and they was going to, after about a couple of weeks, they was going to have a movie about the wax. It was Keep Your Powder Dry. So we marched. Our platoon marched about 2 weeks, not all the time, but each day, making this movie. And we had extra time in basic to make up for the time we was marching for the movie. But it wouldn't have taken them so long, but the women couldn't keep from looking at the camera as we marched off. I guess they wanted to be seen. But anyway, they interviewed me for, I think she was describing Oak Ridge, Tennessee. And they had promised to keep us, my cousin and me, together. And I said, well, since it was just me, I didn't believe I'd take it. So she didn't send me to Oak Ridge, she sent me to Santa Fe. And that was our address. We had a post office box number. And somebody met us and took us up on this little mountain, and that was Los Alamos. Well, when the papers finally reached out there that I wasn't old enough, my captain said, if you don't feel like you just have to go home, we really need you. It was hard for him to describe to civilians about the restrictions and all. So I said, well, I made my mind, if they need me, I was going to stay. And it was interesting, but of all the restrictions, not being able to talk openly about what she's doing and everything. I couldn't even tell the person that slept next to me what building I worked in. But I feel sure that most everybody there kept from spilling the beans of what was going on. But there was some funny things happened. One night we heard this explosion. Well, there was always making tests at the different test sites, but it was right, we knew it was close, and I thought maybe they had misfired or something, but it was our boiler room had blown up. And then one night when I was in charge of quarters, I heard a noise after I went to bed, and I locked myself in the bathroom. And finally I said, well, if anybody's going to bother me, I want to see who it is. And somehow this big dog had got in our orderly room. Of course, I was quite relieved that it was just a dog. But we had a lot of fun. But my best friend was a civilian that worked in our office. And we enjoyed going into Albuquerque and Santa Fe some, but mostly to Albuquerque. And we had to work long hours. We had, we worked 6 days a week till right at the end. And it was, we didn't seem, none one seemed to mind at all. And I checked and kept the records of parts or material that was ordered. And I would, if someone called about them, I'd check on and find out what was going on. And sometimes it seemed to be weird stuff that they were ordering, but sometimes it was because the people that worked at the test sites, they had to change their clothes there, and they were destroyed after the war that day. And I rode down with the guy that was going to pick up Oppenheimer when they made the test at Alamogordo. Well, I had to wait in Albuquerque because they didn't let women go to Alamogordo then. And that was the night they did the test. And, of course, I found out about it the next morning. But I would have loved to have been able to been at the site when that happened. But since no women allowed, I had to just wait. But we were very happy when they dropped the first bomb, and we realized that it would soon be over. But it was interesting, and it was more like a family, even if you didn't really know anybody. If they'd see you off base, it was like meeting a good friend. And they offered me another rank if I would stay 3 more months. But by that time, I was wanting to get back home, and most of the girls was being discharged, and especially the ones that was close to me. So I didn't take them up on the offer, but it was quite an experience, and I'm glad I was able to participate. Didn't sound crazy.
No, it sounded great. Why was it so crazy? Okay, now do you want to tell what you thought of your party? Were you expecting it? Were you totally surprised? And what did you think?
You want that over here? Well, was really surprised. I thought we was just going to Atlanta to a nice restaurant. And when we ate at this 85, I said, I thought we was going to Atlanta. That's where we found another restaurant. And I was just speechless when we got here, and I found out it was all about me. And I found out my girls could really keep a secret, because I didn't have a clue that anything was going on, except we was going to have dinner with Janice's best friend. But it was a wonderful dinner, and everything was just, it couldn't have been better. And I was thankful for all the friends that could come. And I thank my daughters and Connie, Janice's friend, for all they did. It couldn't have been better. It was beautiful and good. we had a little dog named Gloria in the office. And this is when I was secretary to a lieutenant, and he was on leave. And but he told me, he said, now, as long as you do my work, he said, you don't have to sit there if there's nothing to do. You don't have to pretend. You write letters or you do whatever you want to. He said, because I might have to have you stay overtime. And anyway, I decided to walk to the building where most of the guys worked. And I just got over there, and they said they needed me back in the office. Well, before I found out what they wanted, I hid. There was a little space between a cabinet and the room there. And anyway, they said somebody over there, and they said I wasn't there. Anyway, they kept on till I went back. I said, what do y'all want? They said, we just wanted some candy. I had worked for a short time for this girl. Some of the whites would work in the service club at the, it was like a little news counter. And she begged me to work while she was on leave. So I said, well, I would, but I didn't want to. And the first night they said, well, you're the first one that's checked up to the penny. And they were so impressed with that, and I thought that was what you're supposed to do. And anyway, they taught me into, this was after we did our regular job, and they taught me into working a while, every other night. And just about every night I worked, somebody bought me a box of candy. And I had candy in my desk, and when I opened the drawer, this gopher jumped out.
An actual gopher?
Yes, and our little dog tried to get it, and it was getting the best of the dog. And I said, y'all have just made me sick. I'm just nauseated. And we were supposed to go get our pay that day. And I told one of the girls from the hospital, I told her what happened. I said, and I don't feel so good. She looked at me, she said, well, you've got the measles. And I went to the hospital, and the doctor wasn't there, and the nurse was afraid to admit me. And finally I said, well, I'm going to go back to the barracks. I've got to lay down. So she admitted me. And the next morning, this guy came in to get me dressed and everything, and he said, you're a woman. I said, yeah. He said, well, there was a master sergeant named McDonald, which was my maiden name, and they just called him Sergeant, and I was a sergeant. So it was a big mix-up about it, but they put me in the room with this nurse, and we both had the measles, and she was the post commandant's girlfriend, and boy, did we get fed good. he saw that I got everything that she did. So the measles wasn't that bad after the initial part of it.
Sounds like you got treated well because of your good looks.
Oh, I guess I was just lucky. But, and there was a shortage of women there. And I guess it was easy to, to have somebody ask you out.
When there's not enough girls, yeah. But it probably helped that you were so pretty.
Well, thank you. But I was about to sign up to play basketball. And I said, I don't want to have to do that. And anyway, one of the guys that I worked with, he wasn't in our office, but he worked for the lieutenant. And he came to the service club to see me and asked me out. And I kind of fell for him, but we had a difference in religion, so I knew that wouldn't work.
What was his religion?
He was Catholic and I was Protestant. But, and another girl that worked in the church service kept the nursery, asked me if I would work for her when she was on leave. And the first time I ever knew that they paid people to work at church, unless, ministering to people like that. And I told him I said, I don't want to take that money. I'm not used to being paid for what I do in the church. He said, well, it'll just go back in the general fund. So he said, would you teach the 3rd and 4th grade? So I did that for a while, and the kids just loved me. And this one little boy, I don't know if his mother if he had a mother there, or if it's if they were separated, what it was. But anyways, he just spoke about his dad. But every night I worked at the service club, he'd come over, and I would. The guys would find out that I liked the kid. They stuffed that kid full of stuff. He got anything he wanted. But it seemed like it was always something different to do.